In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of Holy Spirit, one God. Amen. Chosen one, stop and listen. This moment is not ordinary, and you know it in the depths of your spirit. Heaven has pressed pause on the noise around you, silenced distractions, and brought you here for one reason, so you can hear the truth before it's too late. You are not reading these words by accident. You are not scrolling at random. You are standing at the very edge of a cliff, and the next step you take will determine whether you walk into your God-ordained destiny or fall into the trap that has been carefully set for your destruction. You have been sensing it, the heaviness, the strange resistance, the way doors seem to open and close without reason. This is not coincidence. This is spiritual warfare. There are forces that have studied you, learned your patterns, and have been weaving a net so subtle that you didn't notice it tightening, but God saw it. Heaven's eyes have been on you since before your first breath. And now the King of Kings is sending this word to break the snare before it's too late. As Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of John, chapter 10, verse 10, the thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. You've been feeling the pressure, haven't you? That lurking sense that something is trying to drain you of strength, joy, and even hope. That is the thief at work, coming after your calling, your relationships, your mind. But the moment you hear his voice, the moment you step back into alignment, the enemy's plans start to crumble. God is not simply interested in keeping you alive. He wants you to have life in fullness. But you cannot taste that fullness if you stay entangled in what's meant to destroy you. Chosen one, I need you to see something clearly. Your life is not random. Your pain has not been wasted. Every tear, every sleepless night, every moment you wanted to give up has been a seed planted in heavenly soil. But you're also in a season where the enemy is trying to uproot that seed before it bears fruit. This is why strange temptations have been appearing. This is why old wounds have been resurfacing. This is why people you thought were gone from your life suddenly reappear. The enemy is playing his last cards to drag you off course. And I must tell you plainly, this is not the time to negotiate with darkness. Don't reason with it. Don't flirt with it. Don't see how close you can get without falling, because the truth is, one wrong agreement, one compromise could close doors for years or even for life. You've been given a window of mercy, and windows close. Look around you. Things are shaking. The economy, relationships, the way the world moves, it's all unstable. And in the shaking, God is exposing what cannot be trusted. This is why He's cutting certain ties. This is why He's making you uncomfortable in places you used to feel at home. It's because He's pulling you out before destruction hit. And yet, here is the glory and the warning. If you obey now, if you align now, you will not just survive this trap, you will come out with a testimony that shakes the enemy's kingdom. Your obedience will become a weapon. Your faith will become a torch. Your very survival will be a sign to others that God rescues His chosen. But you must respond. This is not a message to read and forget. This is heaven's alarm bell ringing over your life. You cannot go back to normal after hearing this. God is saying, step into my plan fully. Stop delaying. Stop wondering if you're ready. I made you ready when I chose you. And I'm going to ask you to do something right now, not later, not tomorrow. Now, if your spirit is stirring, if you feel the weight of this word pressing on you, then like this message, share it so someone else can be rescued. And subscribe so you never miss what heaven is speaking. This isn't about numbers. It's about making sure you don't walk this road alone. We are a remnant rising, and the enemy fears what happens when we stand together. Finally, I want you to act as a prophetic sign in this moment. Type the number 911 in the comments right now. Just as 911 signals urgent rescue in the natural, this is your declaration in the spirit. God is my rescue, and I step into His plan now. This is not superstition. This is a spiritual stand, a visible marker in the unseen battle. You are in danger, yes, but you are also deeply loved, fiercely protected, and divinely chosen. And because of that, you will not fall. The net is breaking, the light is rising, and the next step you take will change everything. Move now. You cannot see it with your natural eyes, but in the spirit, something is being wrapped around your life like a nearly invisible net, lightly and easily. That right movie, likely invisible net, it is not made of rope or wire. It is made of thoughts, emotions, patterns, and unseen agreements you never knew you made. It is a design carefully woven by the enemy to lead you step by step away from the plan that was written for you before the foundation of the world. This net does not feel like a sudden attack. Instead, it feels like ordinary life. It appears as small compromises, familiar distractions, and subtle influences that slowly weaken your resolve. The most dangerous part of this trap is that it does not immediately hurt you. It lulls you. It makes you believe you are still in control, that you can get out any time you choose. But every day you stay in it, the strands tighten in the unseen realm. This net is not random. It has been studied and crafted specifically for you. The enemy has watched your journey, noticed where you hesitate, seen which lies make you pause, and used that knowledge to weave something that fits only you. That is why it feels so personal. Why the attacks seem to know your exact weak point. Some of those threads are fear, fear of failing, fear of not being enough, fear of stepping into the unknown. Others are shame, memories of past mistakes that whisper you are unworthy of God's favor. Still others are false comfort voices that say you've been through enough, just rest here, knowing that stopping now will keep you from ever seeing the fullness of your calling. And while you live in this world, you must remember you are not of it. The net is the world's way of keeping you bound in its system, its rhythm, its priorities. But the kingdom of God operates on a different current. And when God calls you out, you cannot walk in both at the same time. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah chapter 5 verse 26. Among my people are the wicked who lie in wait like men who snare birds and set traps to catch people. This is what is happening now. The trap has been set and you have been circling near it. Not because you desire destruction, but because you have been weary, distracted, and perhaps even unaware. The enemy's snare is rarely marked with warning signs. It is dressed in the colors you love, placed on a familiar path, and offered at the perfect moment to catch you when you least expect it. Sometimes the net comes through people. Not all who smile at you are for you. There are those who knowingly or unknowingly pull you into conversations, habits, or environments that weaken your spirit. They may not even understand they are being used, but the effect is the same. Other times, the net comes through circumstances, a sudden opportunity that seems too good to be true, but will cost you your integrity, or a crisis that forces you to choose between your faith and your comfort. This is why you must see beyond the surface. Everything you encounter in this season is more than it appears. Some doors are not blessings, they are bait. Some relationships are not divine connections, they are entanglements. And some pauses are not rest, they are delays meant to keep you from the appointed time God has for you. The good news is this: no matter how cleverly the net is woven, no matter how tight it feels, God has already prepared a way of escape. He is not showing you the snare so you can fear it. He is revealing it so you can step out before it's too late. But that means you must act when He speaks. Hesitation is where the net gains its strength. You are not powerless in this battle. The same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead lives in you. That Spirit is light. And the moment light shines on a snare, it loses its power. Once you see it for what it is, you cannot be taken by surprise. The danger now is not ignorance, it is apathy. Do not mistake the absence of immediate pain for safety. Some traps are silent until they are sealed. When that moment comes, the struggle to break free is far greater than the strength needed to avoid it in the first place. That is why God is speaking now, while the net is still breakable, while you still have the strength to walk away. The invisible net is real, but so is your authority in Christ. You're not here to be caught. You're here to walk free, to fulfill the plan written for you, and to become living proof that no weapon formed against you can prosper. In this season, your greatest weapon will be discernment, seeing the threads before they tangle around you. The whispers have been constant lately, haven't they? Not always loud, not always obvious. Sometimes they come like a passing thought, so natural you almost believe it's your own voice. Other times they arrive in the words of people you trust, words that seem harmless but carry a shadow behind them. These whispers are not random. They are carefully timed, perfectly placed, and aimed straight at your identity as one of God's chosen. They say things like, maybe you misheard God. And they suggest, you're too late for your calling. And they hint, if God really chose you, why is it so hard? They never shout, because shouting would alert you to danger. No, the enemy's tactic is to drip poison slowly, hoping you will swallow it before you realize it is not truth. The goal is to make you doubt your worth, question your mission, and eventually abandon your assignment altogether. The apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians, chapter 11, verse 3, but I am afraid that just as Eve was deceived by the serpent's cunning, your minds may somehow be led astray from your sincere and pure devotion to Christ. No, you see, it is not always the obvious temptation that pulls a chosen one off course. It is the subtle redirection. The serpent in Eden did not try to make Eve hate God. He tried to make her question His words. That same strategy is alive today, and it works best on those who are close to break through. These whispers do not come to the unchosen in the same way. They are tailored for those carrying light, because light in you exposes darkness in others. The enemy knows if you stay confident in who you are, his schemes cannot touch you. But if he can convince you to doubt yourself, you will hand over your authority without even knowing it. Sometimes these whispers come when you are tired after long days of doing what God has called you to do without seeing the results you hoped for. They suggest you take a step back, that maybe you're pushing too hard, that it's time to lower your expectation. Other times they come when you've been hurt, using pain as an entry point to convince you that following God costs too much and gives too little in return. If you've been hearing these voices, I want you to remember something. Not every thought that enters your mind is yours. You are in a battlefield, and the mind is often the front line. That's why the enemy doesn't need to chain your hands or feet. If he can chain your thoughts, you will stop yourself. But here is the truth that breaks those chains. God has never changed his mind about you. He has not rewritten your calling. The plan still stands, and no voice of darkness has the authority to cancel what heaven has decreed. Your identity is not up for debate. This is why you must speak truth out loud. Silence lets the whisper grow. But when you declare God's promises over your life, you make it clear you have recognized the lie and rejected it. Darkness cannot withstand light, and the word of God is light in its purest form. So I want you to mark this moment as your turning point. Let your spirit respond right now in the comments. Type, I reject lies not as a habit, not because I told you, but because something in your spirit is roaring back at the darkness when you type it. You're putting a spiritual notice on your life. I will no longer be manipulated by voices that don't come from God. I will guard my mind, filter my thoughts, and measure every word I hear against his truth. That declaration is more than text. It's a sword in the unseen realm. The whispers will not stop forever, but they will lose their power over you. And each time you resist, you will grow stronger one day soon. If you wish to express your support further, you have the option to give super thanks with contributions of up to $120. 0 cents. I pay men to get blessing 100 million. You'll hear the same old lies, and instead of shaking, you'll laugh because you'll know the truth. And the truth will have made you unshakable. When you choose truth over deception, heaven moves on your behalf. Angels are dispatched. Doors begin to shift, and the weight you've been carrying starts to lift. This is more than rejecting a thought. It is declaring loyalty to the one who called you. The enemy doesn't fear your emotions, but he fears your agreement with God. And today, with 3 simple words, you've broken an agreement with darkness and stepped deeper into your destiny. It comes dressed as opportunity, but it is laced with destruction. It sparkles just enough to catch your attention, but the shine is only on the surface. Underneath it is poison. This is the nature of the enemy's offer. It appears as a shortcut, a fast track to what you think you want, but the cost is far more than you can afford to pay. The danger of the poisoned offer is that it plays to your deepest desires. It will mimic the blessing you've been praying for, mirror the vision you've carried in your heart, and arrive in a moment when you feel most ready to receive, but instead of being sent from God, it is a counterfeit, crafted in the pits of darkness, made to look almost identical to the real thing. Almost. The book of Proverbs chapter 14 verse 12 warns us, there is a way that appears to be right, but in the end it leads to death. No, this is why discernment is your greatest shield. Not everything that comes easily is from heaven. Some doors open because the enemy knows you won't question them if they make life more comfortable. Some relationships flow naturally because the bait is made to fit your taste. And some successes come quickly because the one offering them doesn't care if they crush you later. The poison offer always has a hook. It may ask you to bend your values just this once. It may push you to move ahead without praying first. It may tempt you to ignore that small unease in your spirit because everything else looks so right. If you have been walking with God for any length of time, you already know His blessings bring peace. They may stretch you, they may challenge your faith, but they do not carry the constant knowing anxiety that comes with a counterfeit. The enemy cannot replicate true peace. He can mimic excitement, he can manufacture urgency, but peace is heaven's signature. And if it's missing, you need to pause. Think of how the serpent approached Eve. He didn't tell her to abandon God outright. He offered her something that sounded good, wisdom. But hidden in that offer was the seed of rebellion. That's how poison works. It doesn't overwhelm the taste, it heated under it. Some of you are staring at a decision right now. It feels like everything you've been waiting for is here, but deep down something feels off. That small check in your spirit is not fear. It's a warning. The Spirit of God is whispering, look deeper. Don't take it at face value. It is in these moments that you must slow down. No matter how urgent it feels, poison offers often come with a rush sign. Now, decide now, don't think too long. That's because time and prayer have a way of exposing what's real. The counterfeit cannot survive prolonged light. So the enemy will always try to push you into acting quickly. This is why God sometimes allows delays. He is not punishing you. He is protecting you from swallowing something that will sicken your soul. Better to wait and receive the real than to rush and regret. There is also another danger. Sometimes the poisoned offer comes from people you love or respect. They may not mean harm, but they can be unknowingly carrying something the enemy slipped into their hands. This is why you cannot base your decision solely on who is delivering the offer. You must test the source of the offer itself. When you resist the counterfeit, you are not just avoiding danger. You are strengthening your spirit for the real blessing. You are proving to heaven and to yourself that your loyalty cannot be bought with comfort or speed. And in that loyalty, you prepare yourself for the kind of provision the enemy can never touch. The poison offer will keep showing up at different points in your journey, always wearing a slightly different disguise, but with each refusal, your discernment sharpens. You begin to recognize the patterns, the too good to be true timing, the subtle compromise, the urgency that pushes past prayer. And once you see those patterns, the enemy loses one of his most effective weapons against you. So do not be impressed by shine, and do not be rushed by pressure. The will of God is never so fragile that you must grab it before it disappears. If it is from Him, it will stand the test of time and truth. Wait for what is real, and you will never regret what you refused. There comes a moment when God's voice cuts through the fog, not with a whisper, but with a clarity so sharp it pierces through your doubt. It's the kind of moment where you suddenly realize you've been standing at a crossroads for far too long. And every hesitation has been costing you more than you imagine. This is that moment you have been weighing options, trying to measure the risks, considering how others might react if you choose the path God is pointing to. But in the realm of the Spirit, waiting too long at the turning point is itself a decision, and it's really the right one. Heaven does not pause indefinitely while you debate. There are windows of destiny that open for a time, then close again, shifting the season entirely. This is why when God speaks, your first responsibility is to respond, not with partial agreement, but with full surrender. It doesn't matter if the path ahead seems uncertain. The safest place you will ever stand is inside His will. Even if you cannot see the next step clearly. The prophet Elijah spoke as recorded in the first book of Kings, chapter 18, verse 21. How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow Him. But if Baal is God, follow him. And the turning point is where you decide whether your loyalty is to comfort or to calling. Comfort will keep you in circles, repeating the same battles, facing the same frustrations, feeling the same emptiness year after year. Calling will move you forward into new ground, but it will also demand courage. When God calls you to turn, He's not simply rescuing you from danger. He's leading you into purpose. The path you are on right now may not be evil in itself, but it is not aligned with the fullness of His plan. And anything that distracts you from the fullness will eventually dilute your fire. There is urgency here. The enemy has been trying to convince you that you have more time, that you can take one more lap around this mountain before committing fully. But deep down, you know this is the hour to choose. Delay is no longer neutral, it's dangerous. This is why I'm speaking directly to your heart. You cannot let this moment pass without movement. When you say yes to God's direction, even without all the answers, heaven starts rearranging things on your behalf. Doors you could never open begin to swing wide. People you need for the next chapter begin to cross your path. Strength you didn't know you had begins to rise. And this is where you must be intentional, not just in your obedience, but in protecting your obedience. Surround yourself with voices that remind you of the truth, not voices that feed your fears. Stay connected to what keeps your spirit sharp. Speaking of connection, if these words are stirring something in you, if they are confirming what God has already been whispering, don't let that fire go dim. Stay plugged into this flow of truth and encouragement. Like this message so it can reach others who are standing at their own turning point. Share it with someone you know is wrestling with the same hesitation. Subscribe so you don't miss the next time heaven sends a word for this exact season of your life. And yes, if this message is feeding your spirit, consider sowing back into the place that's feeding you. Every seed you plant into kingdom work is more than support. It's partnership. It's saying, I believe in the mission of pulling people out of the snare before it's too late. Whether it's big or small, your gift becomes part of the rescue mission. And remember, what you release for the kingdom never leaves your life. It returns multiplied, shaping destinies you may never meet in person, but will rejoice with in eternity. But even more than that, let this be the moment you choose your turn. The physical act of clicking, sharing, or giving is symbolic of what's happening in your spirit. You are moving. You are refusing to stand still any longer. You are stepping out of the comfort zone and into alignment with God's plan. You don't need a perfect plan before you obey. You need a willing heart. And once you give Him that, the rest will follow. The turning point is here, and it is yours to take. Step boldly, for every step in obedience shakes the plans of darkness and ushers in heaven's victory. There is something you need to understand about the unseen battle over your life. The enemy does not fight without a deadline. In the spiritual realm, time is a weapon. And the forces of darkness have been trying to run out the clock on your obedience. What you have been feeling lately, the urgency, the sudden pressure, The strange sequence of events is because the enemy knows his window to trap you is closing. When God gives a command or an assignment, it is tied to a divine season. That season is not endless. Just as there is a perfect time to plant and a perfect time to harvest, there is a perfect time to act in obedience. When that time passes, the conditions change. Opportunities may fade. Certain alignments may dissolve. This is why the enemy works so hard to delay you. Not because he can stop God's plan entirely, but because if he can push you past the appointed time, he can make you believe the plan has died. We see this in the story of Israel in the wilderness. God promised them the land. But when they hesitated, fear took over. By the time they were ready to go, the window has shifted, and what should have been an easy victory became a long and costly journey. Delay was the enemy's silent weapon, according to what is revealed in the book of Ephesians. Chapter 5, verse 15 and 16. Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity. Because the days are evil. No, the enemy knows you are chosen. He knows there is anointing on your life that he cannot destroy directly. So instead he tries to distract you until you drift into a place where time works against you. His goal is to keep you circling the same issues long enough that your faith grows tired, your vision dims, and your heart settles for less than God's promise. You may have noticed this pattern. Every time you get close to stepping forward, something urgent pulls your attention away. An unexpected need demands your focus. You convince yourself it's only a small delay, but weeks turn into months and months into years. This is not random. It is a calculated strategy. The deadline is not meant to make you panic. It is meant to wake you up. God is reminding you that your obedience is not optional in this season. There is ground that must be claimed now before it becomes harder to take later. There are people waiting for what He put inside you, and their breakthrough is tied to your yes. It's also important to understand that heaven's timelines are about more than personal blessings. Often God is aligning multiple lives, nations, or events together. When you respond in the right season, you step into a prearranged flow of favor and provision. But when you delay, that flow shifts, and what was meant to be smooth may become a battle you were never meant to fight. Right now, the Spirit of God is putting His finger on the exact area where you've been postponing your obedience. It might be a step of faith you've been too afraid to take. It might be a relationship you know you must end. It might be a habit you've been unwilling to lay down. The specifics may differ, but the truth is the same. The clock is ticking and every moment counts. And this is where your choice becomes prophetic. I want you to mark this moment with a visible act in the comments. Type 444 right now. In the language of many who watch for God's signs, 444 is often recognized as a number of divine order and stability. It is a reminder that God is aligning everything according to His perfect timing by typing it. You are not just posting a number. You are declaring, I choose to move now in God's order without delay. And do not underestimate the power of such a declaration. Every time you act in agreement with heaven, something shifts in the spiritual realm. The enemy loses leverage and angels are released to clear the path before you. The deadline of the enemy is real, but so is the perfect timing of God. And when you choose His timing over your hesitation, you break the cycle that has kept you circling the same mountain for far too long. This is the hour to act, not tomorrow, not when it feels easier. Now, when the ground begins to shake beneath you, it is easy to believe that something has gone terribly wrong. You look at the cracks forming under your feet and think, this is the end. But in the kingdom of God, shaking is rarely the end. It is often the beginning of something new. Shaking comes to expose what cannot stand. It comes to reveal the foundations of your life, your faith, and your relationships. When everything is still, it is possible to hide instability for a long time. But when God allows shaking, the true strength of what you're standing on becomes clear. Some of what is falling apart in your life right now is not an attack, it is an act of mercy. You have been leaning on structures that looked strong but were quietly eroding. God knows that if He lets them stand, they will collapse later, when the weight on them is heavier and the damage far greater. So He shakes them now before they can destroy you. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms chapter 62 verse 6. Truly He is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress. I will not be shaken. Notice the difference. David does not say there will be no shaking. He says that even in shaking, he will not be shaking. The shaking is external. The unshakable fortress is internal, built on God Himself. That is what He is doing for you. Now, removing the false supports so you will rest entirely on Him. Shaking also exposes attachments. There are people, places and positions you've grown used to, perhaps even built your identity around, but not all of them can go where God is taking you. The shaking tests every attachment to see if it is rooted in Him or in something temporary. For some, this season has meant relationships shifting unexpectedly. People you thought would be with you for life have stepped back, grown distant, or even turned against you. It feels painful, but it is purposeful. Sometimes God allows the ground to shake so that the people standing on false loyalty will drift away before you enter your next chapter. For others, the shaking has been in provision. Jobs, sources of income, or familiar routines have changed suddenly. This can feel like loss, but it is often the preparation for new doors. If you never lost the old, you might never seek the better that God has prepared. Shaking is uncomfortable because it removes your illusion of control. You begin to realize how much you relied on things that were never meant to be your anchor. But in that discomfort is an invitation to anchor yourself fully in the one who cannot be moved. There is also a refining aspect to shaking. Think of how gold is purified in fire. Impurities rise to the surface only under intense heat. In the same way, shaking forces buried fears, doubts, and weaknesses to rise up, not to condemn you, but to be healed and removed. If you allow it, the shaking will strip away everything in your life that does not serve your calling. It will make you lighter, freer, and more ready to run without the weights that once slowed you down. The key is not to resist the shaking, but to discern its purpose. Ask God, what are you removing? What are you revealing? What are you building in me through this? Those questions turn your focus from fear to understanding. When the disciples were in the boat during the storm, their fear came from believing the shaking meant death. But Jesus was in the boat with them, and His presence meant the shaking would never have the final word. That same truth is for you now. His presence is your guarantee that this shaking will not end in ruin. Sometimes the shaking lasts longer than you want. It can feel like God is tearing apart more than you thought necessary. But He sees what you cannot. He knows the strength you will need for the future, and He is making sure your foundation is ready. So if the ground is shaking under you, take heart. It is not proof that God has abandoned you. It is evidence that He is near reshaping your life so that only what is unshakable remains. And when the shaking stops, you will find yourself standing on a foundation so secure that nothing in this world will be able to move you again. There comes a point in your journey when God holds up a mirror to your soul. Not the kind you find on your wall, but a mirror polished by truth in it. You don't see the version of yourself you present to others, nor the image you try to believe about yourself. You see the real you, the one God has always seen, the one the enemy has tried to distort with lies for years. This is the moment of the broken mirror, when the false reflections you've been living with begin to crack and the truth starts to shine through. Those false images may have been shaped by words spoken over you in childhood, by moments of rejection, by comparisons that told you you weren't enough. Over time, you came to believe them. You looked into that distorted mirror and thought, this must be who I am. But the thing about a broken mirror is that it no longer has the power to give a clear image. When God begins to break the lies, your old self-perception starts to shatter. It can feel unsettling at first because it challenges the way you've thought about yourself for so long. Yet, it's also freeing because you realize you don't have to live inside those distortions anymore. As Jesus Himself declared in the Gospel of John 8 verse 32, then you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. The truth is this: you were never the failure the enemy called you. You were never the burden certain people made you feel like. You were never defined by the moments you stumbled. Those were chapters, not your title. But the enemy works like a painter who keeps smearing the same color over your reflection until you no longer recognize the masterpiece God created. When the mirror breaks, the first thing you notice is how much of your identity was built on survival rather than on destiny. You see the habits you formed to protect yourself from hurt. You see the masks you wore to fit in with people who were never meant to define you. You see the limits you placed on your own life because you believed you didn't deserve more. This process can feel like loss. In a way, it is. You are losing an image of yourself that you thought was real. But what you're gaining is infinitely more valuable. Clarity. You begin to see the reflection of God's design, unfiltered and unmanipulated. God does not show you this truth to shame you. He shows it to heal you. His mirror is not meant to expose you to ridicule. It is meant to expose you to light. And in His light, you begin to see your worth with fresh eyes. Sometimes the hardest part of the broken mirror is realizing how much you've accepted from others because you didn't see yourself clearly. You tolerated disrespect because you thought you deserved no better. You stayed in cycles because you thought they were all you could handle. But now, with the lies breaking, you can no longer agree with them. When the truth begins to rise, it often causes conflict. Not everyone will celebrate the new you that refuses to live small. Some will feel threatened by your clarity because it forces them to confront their own distortions. But you cannot return to the old mirror just to make others comfortable. This season is about embracing the unfiltered reflection God is showing you. That reflection says you are chosen not by accident but by design. It says your voice carries weight in heaven's plan. It says your value is not up for debate. The enemy will try to hand you a new distorted mirror to replace the old one. He may use comparison again. He may use past mistakes. He may use subtle voices to suggest you haven't really changed. But once you've tasted the truth, you have the choice to refuse the lies. Breaking the mirror is not the end. It's the beginning of restoration. Every shard that falls away makes room for a clearer view of your true self. And once you see yourself the way God sees you, you begin to live differently. You walk with more authority. You speak with more confidence. You stop settling for less because you finally know what you're worth. When you step away from the broken mirror, you carry something the enemy fears, a clear identity. Because a clear identity cannot be manipulated, cannot be bribed, and cannot be deceived back into chains. You become, in the truest sense, unshakably. There are moments in your walk with God when He brings you back to the place where it all began. Not to shame you, but to remind you of the covenant you made with Him. This is not about empty promises spoken in a moment of emotion. It's about the deep yes you gave Him when you first encountered His voice. Covenants are not casual. They are binding agreements sealed not just with words, but with the posture of your life. When God called you, He knew the battles you would face, the detours you might take, and even the seasons you would grow weary. Yet He still chose you, and you still said yes. The enemy would like nothing more than to make you forget that covenant. He wants you to think it was just a phase, something you outgrew, or a passion you can set aside until it's more convenient. But heaven does not see it that way. What you committed to God still stands, and He still holds it close to His heart. The voice of God thundered in the book of Ecclesiastes chapter 5 verse 4. When you make a vow to God, do not delay to fulfill it. He has no pleasure in fools. Fulfill your vow. This is why covenant is powerful. It links you not only to God's promises for your own life, but also to the flow of His blessing through generation. When you walk faithfully in your covenant, you are standing in agreement with something far bigger than yourself. Some of you can remember the exact moment you made that first covenant. Maybe it was in a small church with tears streaming down your face. Maybe it was alone in your room, whispering promises in the dark. Others may not remember the exact words, but you know the moment when your heart shifted and you surrendered fully to Him. Life since then has not been without struggle. You faced seasons when it felt like God was silent, and you questioned whether the covenant still mattered. But in those very seasons, He was holding you closer than you realized, preserving what He planted in you. God is now calling you to remember, and not just remember, renew. A covenant is not meant to be a relic of the past. It is meant to be lived daily. It shapes your choices, your relationships, your priorities. It is not about perfection. It is about direction. When you realign yourself with your covenant, you strip the enemy of one of his most effective tactics, distraction. You make it clear that no matter what storms come, your course is set. You might bend under the wind, but you will not break, because you're rooted in a promise stronger than circumstance. And so I want you to mark this moment. Type "I still agree" in the comments, not as a casual phrase, but as a renewal of the covenant between you and God. You are declaring to heaven and to yourself that the yes you gave Him still stands, that you have not walked too far to return, and that the promise is alive. When you write it, see it not just as text on a screen, but as ink on the contract of your destiny. It is your public seal that says, my loyalty is not for sale, my promise is not forgotten, and my heart is still on the altar. No. By putting those words into the open, you are silencing the enemy's accusations that say you have drifted too far. You are telling the spiritual realm that the covenant is active, alive, and binding. You are stepping back into alignment with the original fire that started your journey. And heaven takes note, because God always honors the ones who return to the place of their yes. When you type, I still agree, see yourself stepping across a threshold. Behind you lies every excuse, every distraction, every voice that tried to convince you the vow no longer mattered. Before you lies a renewed path, guarded by heaven, fueled by grace, and marked with fresh authority. This is not a return to where you were. It is a stepping into who you truly are. Covenant is not just history. It is the heartbeat of your destiny. And today, heaven is watching as you choose to remember, to renew, and to walk forward with that promise burning bright again. There are times when God does not just whisper His protection over you. He builds it around you like a wall. You may not see it with your natural eyes, but in the spirit there is a barricade, not one of wood or stone, but of light, fire, and angelic presence. It stands between you and the destruction that was planned for you. This is the angelic barricade. You have felt it before without realizing what it was. The unexpected delay that kept you from danger. The sudden shift in plans that frustrated you at first but later proved to save you. The inexplicable peace in the middle of what should have been chaos. These are not accidents. They are evidence of heaven's intervention. The Word of God declares in the book of Psalms, chapter 34:7, the angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear Him, and He delivers them. Sometimes this barricade is defensive. It stops what was meant to hit you. Other times it is directional. It roots you away from a place where you would have been harmed. Either way, it is proof that God is more committed to your destiny than you even realize. But here's the challenge. When you don't see the danger, it is easy to resent the barricade. You may call it delay, disappointment, or closed doors. You might even question God's goodness, wondering why He didn't let things go your way. Yet if the veil were pulled back for even a moment, you would see the army He stationed on your behalf and fall to your knees in gratitude. The enemy cannot cross heaven's barricade without permission. When God says no further, every scheme, every weapon, every plan against you has to stop at that line. You might still hear the threats, you might still feel the pressure, but none of it can penetrate the shield He has placed around you. Sometimes the barricade is built through people God sends into your life, mentors, friends, or even strangers who speak a timely warning or stand beside you in battle. Other times it is purely angelic, unseen to human eyes, but very real in the realm of the Spirit. As often the angel that protects you. And other times it is purely angelic, unseen to human eyes, but very real in the realm of the Spirit. You may not notice it now, but you are living inside the miracle of being kept, not just blessed, not just provided for, but kept, preserved, guarded until the appointed time for your next step. And that is why I am asking you to take a moment to value what God is doing right now. If this word is opening your eyes to how much He has been shielding you, then don't just receive it silently, like this message, so others can discover the same truth. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded they are not abandoned, they are protected. Subscribe so you can keep walking in step with every fresh word that heaven is releasing in this season. And if you know this ministry is pouring into your spirit, consider sowing a seed into it. Every gift, no matter the size, is a way of saying, I stand with this mission. When you partner in this way, you're not just supporting content, you're helping build more barricades for more people, standing in the gap for those who don't even know they're in danger. Your seed becomes a shield in someone else's battle, a silent answer to a prayer they haven't even spoken yet, and heaven will remember the day you chose to protect another soul. Think of it like this: every act of generosity becomes another brick in the wall for someone else's life. God may use your obedience today to rescue a stranger tomorrow. And one day in eternity, you might meet the person whose life was changed because you decided to be part of the rescue. The angelic barricade is not something you earn. It is something God gives because of His love and purpose for you. But you can honor it, you can thank Him for it, and you can live with the awareness that you are surrounded, not trapped. You are shielded, not stalled. So the next time something doesn't go as planned, pause before you call it a setback. Ask yourself if perhaps heaven just built another wall to keep you from harm. And if you could see what was on the other side of that wall, you'd be thanking God for the rest of your days. Walking forward with greater trust, deeper gratitude, and a renewed boldness to follow wherever He leads without hesitation. There are moments in your journey when God gives you something unexpected, not a material gift, but a revelation. It is like finding a sealed scroll in your hands, a message written long before you were born, carrying instructions for the season you are in now. This is the hidden scroll. The hidden scroll is not always revealed in a dramatic vision. Sometimes it comes quietly in a scripture that suddenly feels alive, in a dream you can't forget, in a sudden understanding during prayer. However it comes, it carries weight. It is not simply information. It is strategy from heaven. The prophet Ezekiel describes something similar in his vision, when a hand stretched out to him, holding a scroll written on both sides. Inside were God's words, both warnings and promises meant for a specific time and purpose. Your hidden scroll works the same way. It contains the direction you need for the path ahead, and it arrives right when you are ready to use it. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms, chapter 119, verse 105. Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. This is the nature of the scroll. It illuminates what was hidden, showing you where to step next. Without it, you might still be walking, but you'd be guessing. With it, you walk with purpose, knowing each step is leading you deeper into God's plan. Many people miss their hidden scroll because they expect it to look impressive. They think it will come through a famous preacher, a thunderous voice, or a dramatic miracle. But God often hides His greatest treasures in the simplest moments. That verse you've read at age 100 times, suddenly unlocking a new meaning that may be your scroll. The hidden scroll often contains three things: confirmation, correction, and commissioning. Confirmation strengthens you in what God already told you, removing doubt. Correction adjusts your course if you've begun to drift, steering you back into alignment. Commissioning sends you forward with authority into the next assignment. It is important to treat the scroll with honor. When God gives you a revelation, it is not meant to be stored away and forgotten. It is meant to be read, prayed over, and acted upon. The longer you delay acting on what God has revealed, the heavier it feels, not because it loses value, but because revelation without action becomes a weight. Sometimes the scroll reveals things you didn't expect, truths that challenge your comfort, instructions that stretch your faith, warnings that require you to let go of certain plans. That discomfort is part of the process. A true word from God will not only inspire you, it will shape you. There is also an enemy to the scroll: distraction. The moment God reveals something, the enemy often sends noise to drown it out. You may find yourself unusually busy, overwhelmed, or surrounded by conflicting opinions. That's why you must guard your scroll, write it down, keep it before you in prayer. Speak it out loud so it takes root in your spirit. Think of it this way: a scroll left sealed is as powerless as if it had never been written. The power is not in owning it, it is in opening it, reading it, and walking it out. This is not just about personal growth. Your obedience to the scroll affects others. Someone's healing, deliverance, or breakthrough may be connected to whether you step into what God has revealed. That is why the enemy fights revelation so fiercely, because revelation leads to action, and action leads to freedom. If you are holding a hidden scroll in this season, take courage. God has trusted you with something precious because He knows you will not waste it. It may feel small now, but when you act on it, you will see how far-reaching it truly is. And remember this: scrolls are not one-time events. As you walk with God, He will keep revealing more layer after layer, instruction after instruction, until your life becomes the very testimony He wrote long before you were born. Each scroll is a piece of a larger map guiding you toward the fulfillment of promises you have not yet seen. Treasure them, guard them, and act on them quickly, for revelation is a living gift. It carries the breath of heaven, and it will keep shaping you until Christ is fully formed in you. There are seasons when the enemy gathers all his strength for one last strike. Not because he suddenly has more power, but because he knows he is losing his grip. That's when you face the last temptation. It often comes disguised as something you've already overcome. An old weakness, a familiar voice, or an opportunity you once prayed for, but now no is not from God. This temptation is different from the everyday battles. It's strategic, it's timed for the very edge of your breakthrough. When you are tired from the fight but still pressing forward, the enemy hopes you'll take the bait now so that everything you've built will unravel in a moment. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah. Chapter 6, verse 16. Stand at the crossroads and look. Ask for the ancient paths. Ask where the good way is and walk in it, and you will find rest for your souls. And the last temptation often feels like an invitation to rest, but not the rest God gives. It's a counterfeit rest that says you've done enough. You deserve to relax your standards. You've earned the right to compromise just a little. But the truth is, this kind of rest is a slow slide into chains. Think of Jesus in the wilderness after 40 days of fasting. The enemy waited until he was physically weakened before offering bread, kingdoms, and shortcuts. Jesus refused each one, not because he didn't want food or influence, but because he would not accept them outside of the Father's will in your own journey. The last temptation may come as an unexpected relationship that feels comforting but pulls you away from prayer. It may be a career move that promises financial relief but demands you silence your faith. It may even be an old habit resurfacing and whispering that just once won't hurt. This is the critical moment where you must remember the closer you are to the finish line, the more costly a wrong turn becomes. The enemy knows he can stop your destiny outright, so he tries to delay it, weaken it, or corrupt it at the last possible moment. That's why you need to see the last temptation for what it is, not a gift but a test. And the way you respond will set the tone for the next chapter of your life. Resist it, and you step into your victory unshaken. Give in, and you may find yourself wandering longer than you ever intended. I want you to mark this moment with a visible stand in the comments. Type 555 right now. In the language of many believers who watch for God's patterns, 555 is often recognized as the number of grace, multiplied grace to endure, grace to overcome, and grace to finish. Well, when you type it, you are declaring, I will not fall in the final round. God's grace is enough to carry me through. Now, do not underestimate the power of this declaration. The enemy thrives on secrecy, but when you put your decision in the open, you break his ability to isolate you. You are telling both heaven and hell where you stand, and heaven always responds to faith declared boldly. The last temptation is real, but so is the grace that covers you. And if you keep your eyes fixed on the one who called you, no bait, no trap, no false promise will be able to pull you away from the path he set before you. You are too close to turn back now. This is the moment to lean into his strength like never before. Do not trust your own willpower alone. Call on his Spirit, because the Spirit of God is your shield. When your own resolve feels thin, fill your atmosphere with his word. Remind yourself daily of why you started. Remember the prayers you once prayed with tears, the promises you whispered in the dark, the dreams he planted that still burn in your heart. The last temptation often looks like the easier way, but it is always the longer road in disguise. Every time you resist, you shorten the distance to your breakthrough. Every time you say no to the counterfeit, you are saying yes to the promise. And soon you will look back on this moment with gratitude, realizing that standing firm here became the key that unlocked the door to your next season. The final push is the hardest, but it is also the one heaven rewards the most. There is a moment in every journey with God when a chapter closes for good, not temporarily, not until you change your mind, but permanently. This is the sealed door. Once God shuts it, no amount of effort, pleading, or memory can reopen it. At first, this can feel like loss. You may not even understand why it happened. One day you were walking through a certain path, and the next the way was blocked. Relationships end, opportunities vanish. Habits you once leaned on suddenly lose their appeal. In the natural, it may look like something was taken from you. And the spirit, it is often God protecting you from what would harm you if it continued. The voice of God thundered in the book of Revelation, chapter 3, verse 7. What he opens, no one can shut. And what he shuts, no one can open. And God's sealed doors are as much a blessing as his open ones. The open doors move you forward into opportunity. The sealed doors keep you from stepping into destruction. When he closes a chapter, it's because that chapter has fulfilled its purpose in your story. The difficulty comes when your emotions lag behind his decision. You may still miss what is gone. It's still wonder if there was something you could have done differently. Still replay moments in your mind. But God does not seal a door lightly. He does it with full knowledge of what lies ahead. Sometimes the sealed door is about timing. What is behind it may not be wrong in itself, but it is not right for this season. If you were to push your way back in, it could derail the work he is doing now. Other times, the sealed door is about direction. What was once a path of blessing may no longer lead toward your destiny. There is also the reality that sealed doors protect you from yourself. God knows your heart better than you do. He knows where your loyalties might bend under pressure, where your old habits might resurface, where your confidence might falter. By sealing the door, he removes the option before you have the chance to choose it. The sealed door is not a rejection, it is a redirection. It says, this way is closed, but there is another way ahead. The danger is in standing too long in front of it, hoping it will open again. That posture can keep you from noticing the new doors God is unlocking just a few steps away. Think of Israel after Egypt. God led them out and sealed the sea behind them. There was no going back, even if they wanted to. That was not cruelty, it was mercy. He knew that in moments of fear, they might try to return to what was familiar, even if it was bondage. By sealing the way, he forced them forward into the promise in your own life. The sealed door might feel like the end of something important, but it is also the beginning of something greater. Every time God removes an option, he is simplifying your choices so you can focus on what truly matters. It is human to grieve what is gone, but it is spiritual to trust the one who closed it. Trust does not mean you will never feel the sting of loss. It means you believe there is purpose in it. It means you are willing to keep walking even when you cannot see the next destination clearly. When you encounter a sealed door, resist the urge to keep knocking. Resist the temptation to force your way back in. God's wisdom is perfect and his timing is flawless. The sooner you release what is closed, the sooner you can embrace what is opening. And when you finally step through the next open door, you will see why the last one had to be sealed.